Hello again, Epic 7, and welcome to the new expedition video for this rotation. Seems like just a few weeks ago I was finishing off the Fire, Dark, and Earth expeditions, and then Epic 7 went and reset our expeditions, so now we have to tackle Light, Water, and Earth again. So this video will jump into what I feel are the best teams for that. But before we begin, I'm pleased to share with everyone that, like last quarter's expedition video, this one is also sponsored by my personal favorite emulator, LDPlayer 9. For those of you who are looking for a way to play mobile games like Epic 7 on your PC, LDPlayer is the way to go. LDPlayer 9 uses less resources while providing better performance, and this is largely in part to LD now running the latest version of Android 9 Pie. LDPlayer is packed with features like the video recorder, which I'm using to make this video, a quick, easy press of the button way to take screenshots and share them or save for later. And one of the more important things I think is key mapping. Now in Epic 7, when you gotta go refresh the shop, you've gotta scroll down, click the refresh button, and then click the confirm button when you don't find anything. It's slow and tedious, but if we use the key mapping, you can click one spot. I'm going to click the spot over top of the refresh button, and I'll use the Alt key for that spot. And then I'll click the spot over the confirm button. I'll use the space bar for that spot. I'm choosing those two because they're beside each other on the keyboard. Scroll down, hit save, and you can see on the screen the space bar and the Alt key mapped. Now I can hit both those keys at the same time, scroll down with the mouse wheel, and just tap those, scroll with the mouse wheel, and make sure you don't go so fast you miss bookmarks. Now I'm going to stop doing this because I'm almost out of sky stones, and I don't want to waste what few I have left. Ooh, bookmarks. Okay, and if you don't like the way the key mapping looks on the screen, go back into the key mapping section and just turn it off with this button here and save it, and boom, they don't appear on the screen anymore. They're still there, as you can see, but they're not in your face. Now, aside from features, LDPlayer has 120 frame per second frame rate support, which is incredible for demanding high-end action games. So do yourself a favor, use the link in the description, try LDPlayer out, and show your support for me and my channel. Now let's jump into these expeditions. We get to tackle Light, Earth, and Water. The first expedition we'll jump into is the Water expedition, mostly because I'm excited to use this new 3-star unit, Lilka. The cornerstone of this team is a very beefy Rowana. You could probably get away with Destina, but because of her healing on counters, Rowana is really good for this fight. I've got mine on Stella Harpa just because that's what she's normally on, but to be honest with you, Idol's Cheer would probably be a better pick. Now if you can't quite make your Rowana thick enough, run her on Proof of Valor to get that extra level of beefiness on her. Next is our damage dealer. I decided to run Green Sid for this fight. This is my normal PvP damage dealing Green Sid. Nothing fancy about him, he's still on his S3 EE, which really doesn't do much for us in this fight, but I didn't want to change it. Wind Rider is a good damage artifact. Alexa's Basket will be even better for him. You could also run Symbol of Unity, or if you want to work on the RNG, you could run Dust Devil. All of these artifacts would be great on Sid. Now, if you really want to max your score, I think Ram is just going to be objectively better. You build a good damage dealing Ram, and she should rack up an even higher score, but I didn't want to use a limited unit in this team. Mercenary Helga helps pull the team together. She's got CR pushes, she's got buffs, she does defense breaks, her kit's loaded, and she does really good damage too. So I went ahead and put her on a Rage Pen set just for added damage. I gave her Victorious Flag for some extra damage on top of that as well, and it also helps her survive if yours is only level 50. Now the star of the show is Lilka. Lilka works better than Ruzid here because mostly Lilka is a ranger. You want to have at least 80 or 85% effectiveness on her because her skills are loaded with defense breaks and attack breaks. She also gives a speed buff. Her slow is more consistent than Ruzid's, and since she's a ranger, she can run Song of Stars, which brings even more damage to the team. Lilka's S2 skill is an 85% CR push, and that will help push Sid all the way up. Now, if you don't have Lilka or just don't want to use her for whatever reason, Righteous Thief Ruzid is still a really good unit for this team, and if the stars align, he should be able to push a full clear as well. At the start of the fight, the Symmachus applies weakness to the highest attack unit, which in this case is Sid. Lilka's S2 pushes Sid up 85%. This is where having Idol's Cheer on Rowana can help, because the Symmachus' next attack into Rowana would push Sid the rest of the way. Helga puts a speed buff on everybody, and that'll let Sid inch forward even though his weakness is applied. But my Helga was fast enough that she pushed up, did her S2, and that finished Sid off, so he didn't lose really any turns at all. And now we're doing attacks into a target and a defense break. The slow debuff, much more consistent off Lilka than off of Ruzid. Keeps the Symmachus from lapping us too much, so we're able to do extra damage. We get the 6th hit on the Symmachus, which triggers his counterattack, but that heals the entire team because of the presence of Rowana. That's part of what makes Rowana so great here, is you can do more than 6 attacks every round and not worry about being punished for it. If anything, you want to do more than 6 attacks per round because of the counter heals. That's what makes Dust Devil a really nice artifact for Sid as well.
I'll start. I'll help. Don't look down on me.
So every single unit on this team but Rowana spams a defense break. Lilka has a defense break on her S1. Helga has a defense break on her S1 and S2. Sid has an Ignore ER defense break on his S1 while he has a speed buff. You should have no problem keeping the enemy broken throughout this fight. So here we are coming up on the halfway point of the fight, and we're a little bit behind on damage. About 100k behind. Weakness is applied again, and Lilka's S2 pushes Sid all the way up to 85% on the CR bar, and Helga finishes the push off, and now Sid's back in play. Not having the target debuff is hurting us a little bit, but we got the target as well as the really valuable slow, and now we're starting to rack up points quickly. There's only a couple of things that can really stop this from being an extremely high-scoring team. One is that your Sid is not properly attack-tuned. Sid doesn't have great base attack. In fact, Helga's attack is higher, so it is tricky to make sure your Sid has more attack than your Helga. And you want to make sure the Sid is the one that has the weakness, not the Helga, since Helga has pushes. The other one is making sure your Rowana can take a hit. As you can see, the Symmachus hits really hard. Rowana's not a knight, and we have no mitigation on the team. So you need to make sure your Rowana is thick enough to not die when the Symmachus does his turn. Rowana's artifact is really not that important for this fight, so in a pinch you can put Proof of Valor on her to take the edge off. And as for your attack tuning on the Sid, if you are having trouble with Helga having the higher attack, put attack main boots on Sid, or just use Ram if you have her. I know she's limited, but her base attack's through the roof, and you should have no problem with tuning. So here we are, almost at the end of the fight. We didn't have the best of luck sticking targets in this fight, 15% and all that, but we're still going to clear no problem. In fact, Lilka's going to be the one that puts it to bed. 1.8 million, full auto. I think this is probably now the best water team out there. Ugh, Light Expedition. This one is unethical, and I'm sorry about the quality of this team. It's the only way I was able to pull this off. First, we're going to run Cecilia. I made her crazy screaming fast, and I gave her Midnight Bloom to lower the stat requirements on the other units. I put her on her S1 EE to give her added chance to defense break, and made sure she had 85% effectiveness because she's my main defense breaker in this fight. She also needs to be tanky enough to take a hit. This is really high-end gear for her. I will explain a better gear level later. Next, we're going to run Cerise. I know she's a limited unit, and that sucks, but it is what it is. 85% effectiveness, and run her as fast as you reasonably can. I gave her Song of Stars. I think Miss Confile is a little bit more consistent, but Song of Stars is not limited, and I hate that we're using a limited unit. I didn't want to double it up with a limited artifact. Now you can run Iseria in place of Cerise, works almost as well. Not quite, but almost. The weird thing though is it's got to be a damage Iseria. Most people don't want to build Iseria on damage, but without it she won't heal herself enough. Zealot Carmen Rose is a must for any good light team. Her entire kit is based around this expedition. She only needs 35% effectiveness because she gives herself an effectiveness buff. I put her on Caladra and Rage Set and Pen Set because she does really good damage. Last is the most jacked Rage Pen Set Sirmia I could build. Run her on Border Coin. Border Coin, by the time it procs a second time, does more damage than any of the other artifacts. I tested it, it outdamaged Symbol of Unity, it even outdamaged Jacko's Symbol. But you can run Merciless Glutton, Jacko's Symbol, Symbol of Unity, all those will work, but if you've got a high level Border Coin, that is the sauce. Give her her S1 EE for the chance at double S1 hits. This is the team, and this is how it works.
I didn't want to have to do this.
At the start, Cerise uses her S3. It'll trigger the defense buff, but it'll put a slow debuff on the opponent. And that's the important part, it's the slow debuff. Cecilia will give herself immunity. As long as Cecilia has a buff, then the Pain Pursuer will only hit once. So you'll have less splash damage. Zealot Carmen Rose applies buff block, and that will prevent the defense buff from coming back. If it misses, Cerise also applies buff block, and then this will strip any defense buff that might be up. We dual attack with Cerise's S1, applying target, Cecilia S1's applying defense break, and now we're doing high-end damage. 83k from a greater attack buff Sirmia, and 76k off of Zealot Carmen Rose's attacks. So you can see what I mean. Z-Rose does almost as much, if not more, damage than Sirmia, since she's doing it without a greater attack buff. Now you're looking for the double attacks on Sirmia's S1. Low chance to proc, but that's kind of key to really high scores in this fight. The reason we have really high speed on Cecilia is we want her to rotate her skills quickly. Partially because that helps her keep buffs up, which makes the Pain Pursuer do fewer attacks on her, but also because it cycles her S1 skills around enough that she's able to maintain defense breaks. Remember, she's our only source of defense breaks with her 60% chance to break on S1. Oh, nice. We got a double hit. The EE procced on Sirmia.
Sorry, but I have no intention of losing. Keep watching, everyone.
Coming up on that 50% mark.
Shall we bet on it? I'll destroy you. I got this. How naive.
Here's that 50% mark, and the worst part about it is the Pain Pursuer self-cleanses all the debuffs and strips all of your debuffs. If it didn't do even one of those things, I think this fight would be a lot easier and more accessible. And we did not strip with the S2, so that defense buff is really lowering the quality. We got the strip there. We're only running into target buffs. Hopefully this strips the defense buff again. Good. And we got the slow debuff, and Cecilia reapplied the defense break, so we should be back in business for doing good damage.
This way. You owe me one now.
Greater attack buff into the S3. Now, if you're just going for Dagger Sakaar, you can use this team and run it on manual, or flip it off of auto when Sirmia's turn comes up, and use a Soul Burn when she does her S3. That'll greatly amplify your damage, and you'll get a lot more bang for your buck. We got 3 hits in a row from Sirmia there. Her EE procced, and then she took a turn off of a dual attack.
It can't be helped. This is going to hurt. I will break through. Give up now. Help. I got this.
And one more time, the Pain Pursuer gets to strip all of our buffs and remove all of its debuffs to make the full clear even harder, because now the next hit will proc the defense buff, making it harder to kill. Hopefully this strips the defense buff. Oh no, it didn't strip the defense buff.
Yes.
And I didn't get the defense break, and I didn't get the defense break again.
Sorry, but I have no intention of losing.
Okay, we got the strip, so we should be fine now. Even without a defense break, I think we're going to kill on the next couple of hits.
I'll destroy you. How naive. Leave it to me.
Nice. And there you go. Full clear 1.8 million with some of my best gear on these units. Now, let me show you the team that I normally run for this. This is what my fights normally look like. 1.3 to 1.5 million is my average with this team. Here are the differences. On Cerise, she's much slower, and I run her on a misconfile, Elfelt's artifact. You can still run her on Song of Stars, works just fine, but I find that Elfelt's artifact spams the defense breaks more, makes it more consistent. Cecilia likewise is slowed down a lot. She's down to 242 speed. I've shifted her back to her S2EE, mostly because that's what I run on other hunts, and I've shifted her to Sword of Iseria, mostly because that's what I run on other hunts. In addition to that, I've taken a lot of gear away from Zealot Carmen Rose. This is her normal gear loadout. Same concept, just lower quality gear. Sirmia also, same concept, just lower quality gear. Same EE, same artifacts, just lower gear quality. And this still gets me 1.3 to 1.5 million per run, which I'm happy with. But if you want to max out your gear and go nuts, you can get a full clear by overgearing your team.
It's like this.
Now let's talk about the Green Expedition, the Earth Expedition, the Blooming Snaglich. So, it's kind of the loser squad here. These are units that nobody really uses anywhere else. Well, except for Mercedes. She's come into her own lately. For our front runner in Knight, we're going to run Cecilia. She is by far and away the best Expedition Knight, bar none. Cecilia is loaded with buffs and debuffs that make her incredible for this, so you want her to be fast enough to get those buffs off and have the 85% effectiveness to get the debuffs off. I know, I'm at 84%, but close enough. For an artifact, I ran her on Sword of Iseria because mine's not super tanky. You could also run her on Midnight Bloom, which would greatly reduce your gearing requirement for everybody on the team. You could also run a damage artifact or really just about anything on her that helps you achieve your goals. You definitely want her on her S2EE. The slow debuff is huge for racking up a high score in this fight. Now if you don't have Cecilia, you can run Adventurer Ras. He works okay, not quite as well, but he does work. And also Fire Lilius is a third good option. I think Fire Lilius might be slightly better than Ras in this because of her cleanse. But both of these options are by far not as good as Cecilia. If you can get Cecilia on this team, she will take it to the next level. Now we're going to run Bomb Model Kana as our healer. She does have a strip on her S3, so the effectiveness is nice, though not as critical. With Bloodstone, she is our healer. You want to have her on her S2 EE. This EE increases her dual attack chance and speed by 5%. So raw stats and extra chance to dual attacks just make her that much better of a unit. You do want to have her crit chance maxed out to 85%. I know, I'm only 83, but close enough. And the reason is because the Bloodstone heals based off damage done, so you want her to do some damage. Now if you don't have Bloodstone, don't use Kana, use Mascot Hazel. She is the best healer for this fight, and she will also allow for a full clear, I'd say 90% of the time. Substantially better healer for this than Tamarin. Tamarin has almost no use at all in this fight. Our main DPS is going to be Mercedes. And the nice thing about Mercedes is that all of her attacks hit multi-target, and she hits a lot. She put her on Magic for Friends, and that can proc, and she could take 3 or 4 turns in one round. And when you're trying to get that neurotoxin antidote on you, you want to be able to spam multi-target attacks. Speaking of multi-target attacks, we're going to use Fireball and Cezanne. He is our defense breaker, so we want him at 85% effectiveness again. Fell just short. He does great damage. Mine is a little short on crit chance. I need to mod a couple of pieces to get that up to 100% or 85%. I think Edika's Scepter is probably the best artifact for him because it'll help cycle his S3, and that's where his dual attack and damage is. He doesn't need to be super fast, but you want him to take turns as well. If you do not have Fireball or just refuse to run him, you can run as an alternate Fire Tenebria. She's also got defense breaks in her kit. 2 of her 3 skills are AoE skills, so if you put her on Prophetic Candlestick or on Edika's Scepter, you should be able to cycle her skill cooldowns enough that she will spam enough AoEs. I don't think she's as good as Fireball, but she will still work in the role.
You'll be destroyed.
So since Cecilia is faster than the Lich, she will go first and put immunity on everybody. This means that when the Lich takes his first turn, you don't have to deal with poisons. That's one of the things that is nicer about Cecilia than the other knights. If you're going to run Lilius, you want to make sure Lilius goes after the Lich so she can cleanse the poisons. Fireball does his S3, establishes some debuffs. Kana does her S3 and gives everybody a speed buff. And I'm immune to the poisons, so we can use the S2 on Cecilia to establish the slow debuff and strip the attack buff. And now we're spamming AoE hits so often that we will get the neurotoxin buff relatively quickly. Cecilia's S1 also has a 50% chance to defense break in it. Between that and Ball doing his S3s, you should maintain pretty good uptime on your defense breaks. And there we get the neurotoxin buff. And the team is stabilized. With the immunity spamming from Cecilia, which is why you want to run Cecilia relatively fast, with her immunity spamming, you won't get poisons stacked up on you. And with her S2 having a attack break and a strip on it to pull the attack buff off of the Lich, he never really hits you that hard. In fact, look how little damage my team has been taking. And all of this with just a level 18 Bloodstone on, of all units, Bomb Model Kana.
My lady.
I will break through.
And there's the strip. Oh, I didn't get the strip, but I did get the slow debuff. But even without the strip, between barriers and Bloodstone healing, it's enough to keep me going. Here's the ultimate attack, and we're at 890. We're actually a little bit behind schedule. That was the second ultimate, so we're at the halfway point of the fight, and we just crossed the halfway point on damage. So a lot of this is RNG with getting counterattacks from Mercedes and getting defense breaks constantly on the boss. But I tell you, I would say this clears about 90 to 95% of the time. It's very rare that I leave the Lich with any health left, and those rare occasions where he does survive my attack, he usually only has 70 to 90k left to kill him, and pretty much anybody will come along and finish that kind of a fight off. They see just a sliver of health left on it, they'll jump in and finish it off for you.
Obey me.
Okay, we're making pretty good gain now with Mercedes proccing a little more often, up to 1.2 million. That was a 4,600 hit point heal from Bomb Model Kana there, by the way.
My lady.
Bombs away! Oops, did I forget to ask first?
Obey me.
Nana's on her way!
There's that dual attack chance that you get off of Bomb Model Kana that the S2EE helps. 1.5 million, I think we're fine. The boss is still a couple rounds away. We definitely made up for lost time in the second half of this fight.
Obey me. Obey me.
There's 1.7. And one more hit should do it. Okay, not one more hit.
I will break through.
There we go. 1.8 million with still an entire round and a half left on the turn cycle. So this is a very clean and efficient team. I think you'll really like it, and it'll help you get those golem mats that everybody really wants, right? Well, that wraps up part 2 of my expedition series. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helps you get your Dagger Sakars taken care of, and in general helps you farm better. It's important to have high scoring teams for this, especially as the month wanes on and less people are hitting expeditions. If you have any questions, ask them in the comment section. I do my best to try to keep up with that. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, and most importantly, don't forget to try LDPlayer 9. I think you'll really be pleased by the latest iteration of this Android emulator. It's certainly blown me away. So make sure you try it, use the link in the description so that you can take care of me while taking care of you. Have a great one, everybody.